Magandang araw. Welcome po sa bagong episodyo ng panitikan sa panahon ng pandemya at gayon din sa ganap. Itong format na ito ay supposed to be ay para doon sa tulad ng nasabi sa pamagat ay para sa panahon ng pandemya. Ngunit natapos na ang pandemya ng isang taon at tayo ay nasa panibagong normal. Pero yung format na ito ng talakayan, ng panitikan at paminsan ay pagtatanghal ng mga teksto ay isang format na naging napakamabisa sa panahon na tayo ay nasa bahay lamang at may restricted na mobility. Pero dahil itong format nito ay naging mabisa dahil sa pagla-live stream sa Facebook, sa YouTube, at nakakarating ng mabisa sa higit na mas maraming tao sa kumbinyenteng paraan ay nagpasya ang 𝗍𝗶𝘁𝗶𝗹 na ipagpatuloy ito. At ngayong taon pa lamang na ito ay kailangan naming magsagawa o magtanghal ng mga mahigit sa 20 episodyo ng Pan at Ganap. At ngayon isa na namang panibagong kaya tuloy-tuloy ang pagtatanghal na ginagawa ng 𝗍𝗶𝘁𝗶𝗹 sa format na ito ng pagtatanghal ng panitikan online. Kaya't ngayon ay mapapanood natin, maririnig, maaari tayong lumahok dito sa episodyo ng mga Pan at Ganap. Welcome po. Ako po si 𝗍𝗶𝘁𝗶𝗁, ang Director ng 𝗍𝗶𝘁𝗶𝗹.
Hello everyone. My name is Lakan Umali. I am an instructor at the UP Diliman Department of English and Comparative Literature, or DECL. First, I would like to thank the UP Institute of Creative Writing for featuring DECL writers in today's episode of GANAP. The DECL is incredibly proud to boast a roster of talented and promising writers among its faculty, students, and alumni. From the groundbreaking writing of 𝗍𝗻𝗻𝗶𝗹, 𝗦𝗍𝗶𝘀𝗀, and 𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 in poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction, to the bravura novels of Carolyn Howe, Glenn Diaz, and Gina Apostol, the heartbreaking poetry of Conchitina Cruz Mabi David. The DECL, I think, is not lacking in any wealth of talent. The writing of the DECL has always been characterized by proficiency and creativeness in the craft of writing, by thematic relevance, and by social consciousness. And I'm very happy today to introduce to you some of the DECL's most promising writers who will read excerpts from their works. First, we have one of the DECL's youngest but most exciting writers, Sydney Paige Guerrero. She's an assistant professor at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and is managing editor for an upcoming source book for Philippine speculative fiction. Her work has appeared in Apex Magazine, Cast of Wonders, Daily Science Fiction, Tales in Feathers Magazine, and other venues. And her work will be appearing in Fusion Fragment and Flame Tree Press's Learning to be Human anthology. In 2018 and 2019, she won the Nick Joaquin Literary Award for Fiction and the Amelia Peña Bonifacio Award for Nonfiction. You can find out more about her at www.sydneypaigeguerrero.wordpress.com. So please let us listen to Sydney's reading of her wonderful work.
Hi, I'm Sydney Paige Guerrero, a speculative fiction writer and scholar drawn to all things whimsical and weird. Today, I am pleased to share with you a preview of one of my latest short stories, Elizabeth Yu is a Universal Constant, which is forthcoming in Fusion Fragment issue number 21, out in May 2024. So Elizabeth Yu is a Universal Constant is a satirical sci-fi story that's about a lot of things, but mostly it's an multiverse that explores the question of possibility, or rather the fallibility of possibility, and how much choice and agency we actually have if oppressive systems remain all-encompassing and unchanging. You could kind of think of it, I guess, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, if Evelyn is stuck doing taxes in every single universe. So I hope you enjoy this excerpt as much as I enjoyed writing it. And once again, this is 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝗀 is a universal constant. 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝗀 is being watched, but she doesn't know that yet. She is working on the taxes of some nepo baby senator who makes more money in a year than she will ever see in her lifetime, trying not to be resentful as she sips microwave coffee with the consistency of sludge. She feels something prickle at the back of her neck, a familiar feeling that she studiously ignores, rationalizing that it is indeed the sensible thing to do. And while her mother has never once accused her of possessing any kind of sense, common or otherwise, 𝗩𝗶𝘀 has already tried everything else. Blessings from 3 different priests and a visit to an arborario operating out of a rundown carinderia, salt circles and garlic and Ouija boards and every kind of essential and inessential oil. She's lost far too much time and money and dignity on something that everyone insists isn't there. Still, she finds herself starting to look over her shoulder anyway, just once, out of habit, and she catches herself and shakes her head. 23 universes away, another 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝗀 scowls. 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝗀 is a watcher, which isn't as impressive as it sounds. In this universe, everyone calls her 𝗩𝗀𝘀, and she pretends to be upset that she never moved past her childhood nickname when in actuality, she's upset that she never really moved past her childhood. When she was a kid collecting worn secondhand paperbacks from book sale, she would dream that she was meant for something special, something grand, the kind of things that people write books about, the kind of things she could actually brag about. But her father gambled away most of the little money he made working from contractual gig to contractual gig, and she never did well enough in her crappy school to study anywhere better, and she kept waiting for her life to start. And it was like one moment she was 12 and the next she was 24 and jobless, and a part of her was still waiting, still dreaming. So now she's here, watching, because it's what her parents wanted for her. A good stable job with stable mediocre pay. She doesn't love it, but she does like eating and having a roof over her head, so she stays. Besides, it seemed exciting enough at first. The discovery of microscopic wormholes all over the world and the development of tiny nanobots with cameras to explore them. The subsequent announcement that their world was just one of millions, and the collective wonder that there were infinite possibilities to life as they knew it. But the megacorporations needed people to watch the nanobots' feeds, to study them and take notes, and people like 𝗩𝗀𝘀 were suckered into watching hours of mind-numbing footage after mind-numbing footage, the latest trend in outsourced labor. When the higher-ups realized that most of the universes were empty or not too terribly different from their own, the hype died down, and now 𝗩𝗀𝘀 is mostly paid to spy on companies for trade secrets, or copy the schematics of some new tech innovation, not even high enough on the food chain to deal with some real espionage. Still, she gets to check on the other 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝘀s during her lunch break, and it's not exactly something, but it's not nothing either. 𝗩𝗀𝘀 used to think that she'd find something worthwhile in her alternates, that maybe all this time she was out of step with her destiny, that maybe she feels like she should be special because she is special in another life, another world. When she found out about the parallel universes, she told herself that she caught the failures of every 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝘀 in existence so that every other 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝘀 could be great, and that all that greatness would somehow reflect on her, 𝗩𝗀𝘀, as the one who made it all possible. But 14 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝘀s in, and all 𝗩𝗀𝘀 finds are accountants. Fucking accountants. Which was fine at first, great even, because it meant that in some universes she actually finished college and had some semblance of health insurance that might cover her yearly physical, which is all you could really ask of health insurance in the Philippines these days. 𝗩𝗀𝘀 thought it was lucky. She still does, sometimes. She just wishes it wasn't so monotonously consistent. As she watches the latest 𝗩𝗶𝘀𝘀 take a sip of her lukewarm coffee, 𝗩𝗀𝘀 feels like growing up. The infinite possibilities to life as they know it at her fingertips, And 𝗪𝗀 wasn't special in any of them. She can't even get more than 5 vacation days in a year, or pay off her tuition loans, or have a healthy conversation with her mother. She can't believe this is as good as it gets. She yanks her headphones off and closes the feed. Next to her, her new coworker Annie, her boss's daughter who talks too loudly and asks too many dumb questions and has skin like a supermodel's, is complaining about her bot's audio cutting out. She turns to 𝗪𝗀, then her brow creases, and she asks if 𝗪𝗀's okay. 𝗪𝗀 rubs her throbbing temples and grits her teeth, then flips Annie the bird. From here, things take a turn for the worse, as they usually do in stories, and you can find out what happens next in Fusion Fragment issue 21, out in May 2024. The earliest version of this story was actually written as a response to one of the prompts in Gabriella Lee's creative writing classes back when I was an undergrad. Gabby has had an incredible influence on my own writing journey, and her latest collection of short stories, A Playlist for the End of the World, is a National Book Award finalist and is available through UP Press, and you should definitely check that out. Thank you.
Next, we have one of the DECL's newest but most exciting writers, Rayji the Guia. She's a poet, fictionist, and illustrator. Her work has appeared in Asian Siya, The Deadlands, Harana Poetry, The Pinch, Makiling Review, and elsewhere. In 2021, she was a fellow for fiction at the Bread Loaf Writers Conference, and she was a writer-resident at Sangam House in 2021, Rimbudahan in 2022, and the CMI Arts Initiative in 2023. She has received recognition from the 𝗩𝗏𝗀𝗃 Awards for Poetry and for Literary Criticism, and the Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature. Currently, she's completing a short story collection. Please, let us all listen to Rayji.
Hello, I am Rayji the Guia, and I will be reading 2 poems and an excerpt from a short story. The first poem is called Missing Wala, and it's part of the new zine I will be releasing at BLTX this year. Missing Wala. It's the perfect crime, you know, how you've broken into my life with ease without trace. Without as in wala, hindi nawala, hindi nawalan. I wish you left evidence at the scene, but I can point to. This, I'd say, is where you hesitated. Your fingers grazing mine, I tap which ones for identification, and continue how you held captive not only my hands. Oh yes, this one night you caught me, in a kiss as if you planned this all along. There's more I'd add, the strands of your hair, caressing my thighs, just ko the weight of our being upon each other. There's more here and there, dito din, doon, everywhere, oo, tiyan nga, kumakawala, nagwawala. Pero wala eh. There's nothing to incriminate you. I am trying not to stray away from facts, the undeniable truth, proving absence is impossible. Missing you is complicated. Ang hirap ibaliwala. It's complicated. But there's no other way to say it. Miss na kita. Wala lang. Tell me, must you be thousands of miles intangible, only as real as the words I used to shape you? My words against desire, unmoored from the body, intimacy unverifiable outside the virtual, no crime, no scene. Am I missing for you too? Kawalan ba ako? I can't bear not knowing. Meet me in court, please. Accuse me. This next poem, Rosas, I took inspiration from Emiliana Campilan, popularly known as 𝗩𝗏𝗀𝗃, and this poem was included in the anthology Amity, Peace Poems, which was published last year. Rosas. Binibini I used to call you from that song we couldn't forget. A kundi man to soothe the afternoon until Lola turns the station to pray. Rosary for absence of news before she herself succumbed to grief. An orchestra, a choir, or a waltz we danced as lady and another lady as man. Beneath moonshine, I open my eyes not to twirl out of your arms, but to take up arms in the countryside unreachable. Binibini I still call you in my mind a ballroom for the eternal encore before our parting. As women coming of age, starry-eyed in spite of war, the promised last dance keeps the beating of my feet across fields, over mountains, praying for that day I follow the steps back to you. On that day, a song will begin, as scriptures have promised, but of trumpeting jazz and disco, I will find you in the chanting crowd, among comrades' blood-red petals on the streets. Halina, binibini, I'll beckon. Hand in hand will dance the swing before their effigies aflame, a fulfillment of retribution. Lastly, I will read from my short story, Balikbayan, which was recently published in Lakan Journal, Volume 17. It's also in the process of getting adapted for the stage by my colleague, the playwright May Cardoso. In Balikbayan, the main character Stella received news of her sister's death and has to claim the body at the funeraria, where the receptionist Vanji delivers the mystery of what happened to Katrina Langitan through chismis. Was Katrina Langitan an NPA member, a prostitute, or a drug addict? So I will be reading from a condensed excerpt of mostly dialogue. So Katrina, the sister, she's a lot older and she was a teacher before then. Imagine my shock when I heard from her best friend no less, who's my cousin's aunt on the other side, and it was my cousin who told me that Katrina, she worked in a beer house in Cavite City, near the Navy. The last words were uttered in emphasis. Stella closed her eyes for a couple of seconds, then asked, "Near the Navy?" "Yes, Mom, catch up naman, hostess, go dancer, GRO, to soldiers away from home. Pampalipas oras, ganun. Diyos ko, she taught kids." "There must be a reason," said Stella, her own voice simply an echo to her own ears. "They were really poor, kaya kapit sa patalim." "I see." "In a way, gets ko," said Vanji, shrugging. "If I had a choice, I wouldn't sit here surrounded by corpses. There's another thing. So I have a suitor." From there on, Vanji couldn't stop grinning as she spoke, her voice giddier. "He's a police officer, just got assigned here last year. So macho with abs, unlike most police and their bellies." Despite the confusing detour, Stella tried to look interested. "He comes here often," said Vanji. "The police chief kind of turned him into an errand boy. That's how I met him, to bring gifts to the owner, my boss. At the station, they nicknamed her 𝗍𝗀𝗄𝗃. My suitor's favorite is aba 𝗍𝗀𝗃, like a prayer, because she's super close to the chief, their Panginoon. Oh, sometimes he brings me his own gift, like fishball, 𝗍𝗁𝗃, isaw, whatever's on the way." "Oh, and then?" "Wait," said Vanji, as if realizing something. She gasped, "They're having an affair." "Huh?" "They knew each other from college. Manileños, you know." "Wow. The Manileño wife of Somoza, my boss, kabit, at my kabit. Never misses a Sunday mass, pero skandalosa pala. Why is the police chief of Mayabo not someone from here?" "Local officers get assigned elsewhere. Apparently they're too nice to the people they knew from childhood. Mga tiyo, tiya, pinsan, kababata, kapitbahay. All would get away hanggang bakla, tomboy, butiki, baboy." She scoffed. "But a crime's a crime, right?" "So how's this related to Katrina Langitan again?" "Teka lang, Bes, I was getting there. My suitor, okay, his name's Ramon." Stella rubbed her tired eyes. "Kinilig ang pota." She couldn't help blurting out under her breath. "So Mon was here earlier. He got me this chicharon. He's so sweet. But my boss went to Manila. He couldn't stay too long, but I asked if he knew anything about the new arrival. He told me that Katrina Langitan's not just, a dancer. I mean, obviously, but then she's also..." Vanji leaned close again, and in a grieved tone, she said, "She's a drug addict and a dealer to big-time clients. Shabu." "You sure?" Vanji rolled her eyes. "Malamang, he's police." So that's it. Thank you.
Next, I'll be reading some excerpts from my own works. Though I primarily write fiction, I do also enjoy writing poetry because of the attention it demands and the playfulness it offers when it comes to the use of language. The first piece I will be reading is a suite published in Soft Blow Journal. Austerity. My mother loves plants. Once most of her children grew up and found other lives, she learned how to cultivate a garden in the middle of the city. Our house's margins are filled with flowers and vines, plants that live in pots because the streets are too toxic for their roots. I want to give her another place, something more green. But this is all we have. Lessons on Christian living. The afterlife has many known knowns and many unknown unknowns. as well as many unknown knowns and many known unknowns, that God herself has to keep a database of all of creation, powered by the universe's reverse. I do not know if I will see my parents in the afterlife. I do not know if I will enjoy the afterlife. Might be Marxists and conservatives and libertarians and dog whisperers in the afterlife. In the southern regions of the afterlife, there is a palace made of frozen chocolate, where each part will regenerate once bitten off and swallowed. Defecation is allowed in certain clouds. No one has ever tried returning the afterlife to a pharmacy and requesting the generic version. Here bloom many kinds of trees, and their branches come either lollipops or snakes, depending on how many beggars you've ignored in your lifetime. Perhaps God in the afterlife will take the form of a young brown woman and ask all the rich white men, where were you all this time? Of all the unknown knowns, I know the afterlife has a street with plants that grow tall and do not need water or sunlight, though they are all in abundance. You'll face windows looking into a cool, bright evening that never ends. But as of now, you are someplace else. Urban studies. Of the many memories that may have not happened, I remember clearly when we disobeyed our mothers and ran down the street and took a left at 𝗍𝗓𝗓, speeding by our old nursery school and marveling at the buildings, houses, and fenced-off gardens we had previously never seen, far beyond their sanctioned playground. We found an abandoned lot with a few medium-sized trees scattered around it. We took turns climbing them, playing monkey until we got tired, and decided to play hide and seek. I shouldn't have agreed when you asked for 2 minutes to hide, forgetting how fast you could run. We hadn't yet demarcated our newly found territory. I might have spent hours looking for you. I walked blocks and blocks away from the abandoned lot, taking note of landmarks to guide me back, because I was, and still am, terrible with directions. When the sun was about to set, I prepared a steep beach to tell our mothers that would hopefully lessen the tongue lashing. I trudged back to the field, where I found you sitting on one of the branches. I asked you where you had been. You said you wanted to go home. San Juan City Blues. We're lucky to have a roof over our heads. We're unlucky that this roof often shelters over the empty. We're lucky to live in an area where the floods don't usually reach us. We're unlucky the first contractor cheated us, leaving us an initial home with ceilings that grazed our heads. We're unlucky an uncle was an architect and agreed to do renovations for cheap. We're unlucky the rain gets in everywhere, dripping on plasters of saints, treated wood, staircases, old sheets, and family albums. We're lucky there's space enough for everyone. We're unlucky that some of us have moved on to different, more cramped spaces. We're lucky we live in a quiet street. We're unlucky when the quiet is sometimes broken by very drunken revelry, tempting us to poke our heads out windows and lecture the partygoers on the basis of class struggle. We're lucky to have running water. We're unlucky when the water chooses to run everywhere. We're lucky to live somewhere that opens to everywhere. We're unlucky that everywhere has heat, smoke, and dog shit in the most public of places. Finally, I will read one of my poems, which was part of the suite that won the 2017 Manunulat Awards in the English category. This poem is entitled Monsoon Season. I have learned the measure of moody weather, the barrage of raindrops and stout houses, washing rust, dust, grime into the flooded streets below. The tincture of her, heady, musk primed to vanish with the swiftest liquid motion, a thought tipped on a crest before falling into the neighborhood swell. Outside the storm shakes, flowers from the vines, scents jasmine water crashing against the dirty doorway of my house. I scan the coast, count the boats, anchored to the city's shore. And I think of the god, caged beneath the sea, his fists pounding the unyielding water, pressure pinning arms, legs, lungs, to the black ocean bottom, the price paid for misplaced desire. Inside, the fire burns slow in the chaos of water, every threshold invaded by the cold. Still, I remember her bone of fresh fish, ropes of seaweed, mollusks peeking from their shells, how her briny hands plumb the ocean's depths and gift me with salt. In her absence, I peer out into the seascape that always churns with divine anger. I pick up a pen, a dry square of paper. Before light fails me, before the chill pins me to bed and makes me heavy for sun, I make a list of things disturbed by rain. So, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed listening to those poems. Finally, we have one of the DECL's most brilliant writers, Larissa May Suarez. She is an assistant professor and was the former editor-in-chief of the Philippine Collegian. Her short story, Sundays at the Cardosas, won a Palanca Award in 2016. Her work has appeared in the Makiling Review and Tomas, the journal of the UST Center for Creative Writing and Literary Studies. So please, please, please let us listen to the amazing Larissa May Suarez.
Hi, I'm Amy Suarez. I'm going to share an excerpt of a short story I submitted to the UST National Writers Workshop titled The Birds of SM. It's about a woman named Paula whose father joined the revolutionary movement in the Philippines, and this excerpt describes how she struggled to come to terms with her father leaving their family. Before I begin, I'd like to discuss the title briefly, since it's something I can't include in this excerpt without spoiling the end of the story. The Birds of SM don't appear until the final few pages in a recollection of one of Paula's fondest memories from her childhood. The seed of the story was planted when I was at the mall and saw an enormous flock of birds appearing from behind a giant SM sign flying away. And I thought about what this land had been before the mall was built. I thought about displacement and loss and endurance and adaptability, and so the first character came to mind, a taxi driver, someone who actually noticed the birds in the mall and watched them and even fed them birdseed on occasion. I thought about what such a man might be like, what he would believe in, what he would be willing to do to change the world around him, and how that would affect the people he loved most. Okay, so on to the story, The Birds of SM. I was 12 when my father left. It was a Friday. At school, a friend had invited me to watch a movie over the weekend with her and her parents. They offered to pick me up from my house in their car, and they offered to pay for the tickets and popcorn. I said yes and rushed home from school in a burst of enthusiasm. I couldn't wait to tell my parents, and I plotted how to convince them to give me a little money for the outing in case I saw something cute in a store. I don't remember what movie we were going to watch because I never saw it. That afternoon, I came home and found my mother crying in the kitchen, my father with a glass of water seated beside her saying over and over again, "Drink, drink this, it will help." Our house back then was a bungalow in 𝗍𝗀𝗁, a few streets away from the house where my mother's sister and my cousin Larissa lived. It was in the cramped districts by Aurora Boulevard, where a 5-minute walk took you either to a slum area or a mall complex, depending on which direction you went. My father's taxi was parked outside. His plate number was one of the first things I'd ever memorized. I learned it by heart even before our phone number or our address. I was delighted to see his car in its usual spot on the street. We had no garage or driveway. I'd foolishly blown my weekly allowance on fish balls and sago, and I knew if my mother balked at giving me extra money, my father would slip me something later. When I entered, the two of them were in the kitchen. The way they looked, I thought some distant relative had died, so I went straight past them. I decided to keep my news to myself for the moment, and I figured they would tell me what was happening soon enough. My mother's voice cracked as I stepped into my bedroom, startling me. I had never heard her use that tone before. "Tell her," she said. "Tell your daughter what you're planning. Don't make me be the one to do that for you." "I'll tell her," my father answered. "I'll tell her, I promise." I quickly closed the door behind me, unnerved. Their voices subsided again, unintelligible through the door, and I thought of how that murmur of conversation had so often soothed me to sleep before. Many nights I'd lain in bed, the only light coming from the crack between the door and the floor, while my parents sat in the kitchen and talked. That night, he told me, within the week, my father was gone. In the first few days after my father left, I had terrible insomnia. I would lie awake for hours. I stuffed an old rag in the crack under the door to keep out the light, but no matter how tired I was, I couldn't sleep. Sometimes I slept with my mother, and sometimes I slept in my own room. It didn't matter. Whether with my mother or alone in my own room, I lay awake. Eventually, I began falling asleep at normal hours again, but I started rising at dawn. At the faintest hint of morning, usually around 5 a.m., I stirred into consciousness, and without pause, the sadness would come over me, as fresh and crisp as a cold wind. As soon as I awoke, the onslaught of my own thoughts jarred me from sleep to alertness instantly, better than any alarm clock. I thought I would outgrow it, but at 27, I still have that habit. One such morning, maybe a month after my father left, I turned in my mother's bed and found her awake. The sky was barely lit, a deep indigo outside the window. She had been crying. I pushed my face into her shoulder and put my arm around her waist. Her voice, when she spoke, was slow. She stopped often. Sometimes she stayed quiet so long, her eyes closed. I thought she had gone back to sleep, but then she would open her eyes and go on talking. She told me she'd met my father in those uncertain years after the declaration of martial law. She said everyone got married young back then, probably because of the danger, the urgency that everyone felt, even those who weren't activists. He was a conductor for that bus line that kept having accidents along provincial roads. When that bus line closed for good, he became a taxi driver. He joined a drivers' union. My mother said she thought it was a good idea because you know how it is in this country. We blame drivers for traffic, for fare hikes, for accidents, for pollution. You have to stand up for yourself. She said she knew he had been getting in deeper. He was telling her about revolution, about change. She said, I don't disagree, but he didn't just join strikes and rallies. He attended late night meetings. He recruited other drivers. He painted placards. He read pamphlets. He never hid it. He was honest. And yet, my mother said, when he told me his plan, I was truly shocked. The night I'd seen my parents in the kitchen, just a few days before he left, my mother had already known for weeks. She said she'd been trying to change his mind, telling him, you're old, you're almost 40, how can they want you? But he said many men and women older than himself had made the same decision. He said there were people in their 60s in the mountains, still strong and healthy. He said he'd leave us money, that his friends here would always make sure we were provided for. That day, he said, his decision is final. The taxi's been sold. After that, the silence stretched and stretched until I sat up and peered down at my mother. She was really asleep. Her face had relaxed from the contortions of tears. She looked calm, like someone who was waiting, but peacefully, certain that what she awaited would come soon. Okay, that's it. Thank you.